168.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I still want to load this animation in, but I still haven't done what I need to do that. So anyway, yeah. Okay. I think at least Scott and I are ridiculously tired, and I think Josh is ridiculously irritable, right?
Yeah.
Or has that passed?
No.
Okay. So this should be an interesting one. I think this will be good. Yeah. So let's jump in. Does anybody want to start with what you've accomplished?
Yeah, I can start here. Let me switch over here. Hold on 1 second. Screen share. All right. So so this morning bright and early at 4:30 in the morning, I got up and did a hangout with Marshall Lee, talking about our new art challenge. It's not new. We're just bringing it back. Take Me to Your Leader Tuesday, where you draw an alien every Tuesday. So I did that, and then I also, for StreamYard, I kind of created this custom overlay, which probably I will only use that one time. And then I also edited my video that I'm going to be uploading tomorrow. That's kind of the thumbnail for that. So I did that. Let's see, what else did I? Oh, so I've been uploading my my Comic Maker Toolkit to a couple other marketplaces, Creative Market, and also another one called You Work for Them. And it's always a hassle because everyone wants different file formats and different sizes, and there's always problems uploading stuff, and so that kind of stuff just takes forever. But I mean, obviously you got to do it. I mean, I'm sure it'll pay off, once I get some sales coming in. But yeah, so that just stuff like that,
Yeah, that stuff tends to take like twice, if not 3 times longer than you always estimate. I mean, that was my own experience where I'm like, oh, this will take 10 minutes. And then like 4 hours later.
It's always all these little things. I've also been doing a lot of promos, like, promo graphics and things like that. And that just all takes a lot of time, and different things I didn't really think about, like, oh, I need to do this graphic for this and that, just all that kind of stuff.
Death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing.
Yeah. So, that's what I've been working on. And right now I'm kerning some type, and my dog is doing something, making noise over there. I don't know.
Still being a silly, misbehaving puppy, I hope.
Yeah.
Good.
I just took her for a walk. I thought she'd be okay, but she gets more riled up, it seems, when I take her for a walk.
That's fun. How about you, Josh?
All right. Well, what I did accomplish is going to be a little bit of a topic, I think.
Okay.
Telling you, silly dog business. So let's see. Let me see if I can kind of get the clear working on this for this. And that may not actually work. Great. So the screen share won't work on this. So I'll just kind of say, oh, here we go. Okay. Got it. Should be sharing. You guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So I basically did the lettering and the inks for the panel borders on the next page of Quarterly Stories, and then started. I'll probably get about halfway through tonight. So I'm a little bit ahead of where I thought I'd be. And then because it's a 3-day weekend, this will tie more into our topic, I'm sure. But I thought, how many days does it take to kind of go through nicotine withdrawal? And the first 3 days are the worst. And I was like, I got to take advantage of the opportunity of this weekend, because I'm not going to have a 3-day for a while. And so it's a good time to kind of kick the whole vaping thing, which has been my method of kicking smoking. And so I just did some thinking about it and thought that would be a good thing to do this weekend. So
cool.
So far, so good on that.
Yeah. So you're 3 days off.
Yes.
Cool.
Well,
that's awesome.
today's my last day, so I have to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
I figure those 3 days, get through the worst of the hump, and then see how it goes.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's awesome.
It's pretty impressive because I mean you've always said how much you enjoyed that, so it's like because most people when you hear them it's like I gotta quit. I've never really heard you say that much in the past. It's just like I like it. So it was kind of a surprise to me. So but yeah, good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Good luck.
it's kind of one of those things of I don't like being owned by something. I don't like the idea of something that I couldn't cut out if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what bugs me about it. So if I could like casually do it, it wasn't an issue, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the fact that I can't do that, it seems like a good sign. Like that's something I should get rid of because that's nonsense. Like I don't want anything like owning me to that extent. And then what's interesting is from going through these days, I'm like, oh yeah, I was like it's very much an addiction because like the first day in particular was a lot of withdrawal, and it's like weird withdrawal where you like feel like your blood's draining out of your body and you're like, oh wow, okay, this is not like normal, like, oh, I didn't have my coffee this morning kind of feeling. This is like just massive addiction. So it's been interesting to ride that out. And then yesterday, having moments of just total anger, where I'm like, I could just do this thing and then be back to like my normal happy old self. And it's like, no, write it out and like, like this will pass. That's been pretty interesting. And then today is just mostly like it's better control over it, but there's still. Now it's more of the moments of like, you've done very well, reward yourself with the thing you're quitting. And it's like, no, that's another one of the things. So I don't know. It's interesting, but.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we'll jump more into that during the topic because I'm interested. For me, I am to the point where I am animating. So
quite a lot too.
Yeah. Anything with green check marks here is done. And so I've got, I'm trying not to show like finished scenes. So I've been sharing my progress on Instagram and on here. But I'm trying not to show like finished scenes. So anyway, you can see I've got this scene done. That was probably the most complicated scene I've ever animated, I think. And that's finished. I got this one done, which was a bit of a challenge, mainly just because every time I touched anything, I had to wait like 90 seconds to 3 minutes for my computer to respond, just because it was so many assets all at once. And so, and then I got this scene done. So I've got four scenes in the can, and that's all been since Friday night. So it's going pretty well. I like where it's headed. I've got a long ways, many miles to go before I sleep, I think is the phrase. But yeah, so it's going good. I like where it's at. Oh, this is like stuck. There we go. But yeah, that's mainly it. I'm trying not to. I have a goal that seems kind of lofty, and I feel silly saying it out loud. But I want to enter this into a number of festivals and things, and some of them are fairly picky about like how much is shown publicly prior to the festival and stuff. And so if I can get that into one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
I think it'll be to my benefit to not have shown like finished scenes on social media prior to that. And if not, then I'll just release it myself. But we'll see. There's kind of a circuit that I'm starting to gather. So, and I realized today, maybe this is part of the challenges. I realized today I haven't, and this is typical of me because I don't have a strength in this area. I have thought about sound, not at all. Like I've put zero thought into what people will hear as they're watching this. so, so I think I will get all of the visuals done within the 28 days that I wanted to do, which is still really aggressive. And then I've got to figure out, I don't know, some kind of soundtrack or something, Foley and all that jazz. It didn't even cross my mind until I'm like, I'm not hearing anything as I'm watching this. So that's not part of this 28-day thing. I'm gonna get this short done and then take a nap for 3 days. So yeah,
that's good you mentioned it though, because there's a couple of the clips that I know you can't show, but it's like one of the first things I think is like, what's he gonna do with the sound on that? Like, is one of the first things that comes to mind. So I think and it's good that you know that, and that you know. So I think you can make it happen.
I'll make it happen, just like everything else by sheer force. Yeah. But I mean, there's no dialogue in this short, and so yeah.
So Corey, I don't remember if I asked you this or not, but is this project for a client or is this a personal project?
This is a personal project.
Okay, that's kind of what just based on the imagery I'm seeing with the artists at the table, and that looked like a convention thing. That it was a personal thing, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's
plus the bugs, you know.
Yeah, right. It's my take on the current setup, the disparity of income when it comes to people actually doing the work and coming up with the ideas versus those that distribute that work. There's a pretty big disparity, and so it's just it's one of my social commentary pieces. Yeah. So it's one of those things that if people understand what I'm saying, I'll be blacklisted by anybody that has any money, and no one will hire me anymore. So it's but
except
anyway,
you're talking about everybody with money except anybody who might fund what you're doing. That's
exactly.
You're the exception.
But anyway, so that's what I can't. Was that my accomplishments? I can't remember what
I think
we were
so.
on.
Yeah. I think
so. So Josh, do we want to skip challenges since that's the topic for you?
Let's skip my challenges.
Okay. Yeah. Scott, how about challenges for you?
Challenges, there was just with this whole, uploading to these design marketplaces and everything. Like I was uploading to Creative Market, I entered all the information and everything, and then there's something new on their site where it automatically wants to generate a price for your product, and I don't know how it tries to calculate what that price is, but it was trying to say that it wanted me to charge $8. I'm like, I ain't charging $8 for this thing. I put hundreds of hours in it. So, and it wouldn't let me change it. And the only thing it said, then there was something like, to find out how to either set your own prices or get rid of the auto pricing or whatever, click here. So I clicked on that, and it basically just wiped out everything that I already created. So then once I got to the point where I could change the price, then I had to re-upload everything. Just things like that. The other major thing I ran into, and this is sort of a big one. It's right now. I'm trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do because, you too, Corey. I mean, we just kind of got you too, Josh. I think we all have Squarespace sites now, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what I didn't realize was that Squarespace has a limit on digital products that you can upload as far as file size. And this kit the ones that I have up there so far fell within the range, but this one's so big that it wouldn't let me upload it. And I kind of Googled it and found out, basically if there was any other like options or whatever, if you could do it like in pieces, like, and basically they said, no, people have been asking for this for Squarespace for a while and they don't seem to want to budge on that. So that kind of sucks because this is like the major direction that I'm going to go into is digital products. I mean, that's my focus now.
Yeah.
So the fact that I can't really upload them is a bummer. So I did find a workaround, but it's got some drawbacks. So I'm just trying to figure out. It'll work for now, but I'm just trying to figure out what to do about this. Because I mean, I don't want to build another web. I just built a website. You know, I mean, I don't want to have to go. I don't.
Yeah.
So it just sucks. I mean, you know. So
What's the file size limit?
I think it's 500 megabytes.
Ooh,
and
that's small.
Yeah, and mine is like the Comic Maker toolkit is like 1.5 gigs. So
Yeah.
So that's.
I wonder if you could break it up into 3 parts. They pay for.
Oh.
Well, but they pay for one, and then you email them the coupon for the other 2.
Okay.
So there's still. So to Squarespace, you've just got a coupon that gives these 2 products away for free, but
right.
to your users, you're selling them as a group.
Okay.
I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, after the show, I'll kind of tell you what I did, and we can brainstorm maybe a little bit. But
interesting.
Because that's a big thing. I'm trying to find some way to do it. Because I mean, what I did will work, but there are some issues with it. So.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Sorry.
But yeah. So just that's kind of that was the major thing. So those are some of my challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, challenges for me. I'm looking at school is starting soon, and I've been trying to get so for the last little while, my sleep schedule has been. My plan was to go to bed at 4 a.m., wake up at noon, and then work when I'm awake, right? But what has happened over the last week and a half is that slowly been slipping. And so the last 3 or 4 nights I've gone to bed after the sun comes up, at 6:30. Last night I was falling asleep at 11, and then so I went to bed, and then I couldn't go to sleep once I was in bed, but I was falling asleep at my desk. And so then I went to bed, and then I'm wide awake. So then I came back to my studio, and then I'm working. I worked till 6:30 this morning. And so I'm just struggling to figure out how to do all that. And to get back into a normal thing. This is where I'm at. So you can see I've got basically next week. Wait, what is today? Today's Monday. I've got this week to finish this thing.
Okay.
And so this is the black are the things that I finished. The gray is where I struggled and missed deadlines. And then the colored things are the things that are not done yet. And so I'm still on track. But I think I could use another 2.5 weeks to really do what I wanted to do, but I'm gonna shoot to get it done by this Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm, a lot of these scenes are 80% done. I just need to lay them out, animate them, and render them.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not as bleak as it looks, but it is challenging. And then I think I'm just totally fuzzy with, my brain is getting to the point where it's really fuzzy, just because the way that I'm sleeping, I think, is catching up with me. So. Yeah. So those are the main challenges, is just not thinking clearly, and it's flipped totally. And then I've been doing intermittent fasting and meal replacement to try to get healthy. And I'm down 6 pounds, but also, 2 of my 3 meals are liquid. And so I've been trying to find the right combination of things to do that with and everything. Anyway, just a number of things. And I can't tell, there's been a day or two where I've been really lightheaded and dizzy. And and it's hard to tell whether that's sleep deprivation, dehydration, or lack of calories,
Yeah.
or a combination of all three. And so I'm very aware of that, and I'm trying to just balance everything and make sure that I'm not doing myself too much irreparable harm.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but anyway, so those are my challenges.
That is tough. And like the fasting, like that's cool that it's working, but yeah, that is tough with fluid because like even if it's giving you the nutrients, there's just like this inherent feeling of just like, but that wasn't food, you know, like
Right.
which is weird because it totally is, but it just like psychologically that's a very hard thing.
Yeah, and my real problem is that the one that I found that fills me up and I don't get that filling
Yeah.
is like twice as expensive as everything else. And so like I've tried four different things up until this point, just trying to find stuff that like doesn't taste like I had one and it was like it literally tasted like I took dirt and grass and just blended it. It was the most horrific tasting thing, and that was after I like put peanut butter and like chocolate and a banana and an apple. It still tasted like none of those flavors, just dirt and grass. And there's others that taste incredible, but I'm like, oh, I'm getting like, you know, like a menopausal woman's dose of estrogen with this one, you know? So then anyway, it's been a challenge. And the one that like fills me up and doesn't taste horrible and has decent ingredients and is totally like above board on all this stuff, it's like twice as expensive as the next competitor. So, but I'm also replacing 75% of my meals with it. So we're buying fewer groceries. And so anyway, I'm just rambling now, which is probably a side effect of sleep deprivation. So, how about your plans, Josh?
All right. So plans, I would like to, by the next time we do an art check, I'd like to be done with this first panel, or at least 3/4 of the way through. It's a crowd scene. It takes forever, but I still would like to at least have that knocked out. And then I'd like to stay consistent with the thing that we'll be getting into more, but I'm hoping to be consistent with that on the next art check.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Scott, how about you for plans?
So yeah, I'm gonna keep hitting this font duo thing that I'm working on. Try to get that done. Probably have to start some freelance stuff, and I don't know. The main thing is just really trying to hit these, get more of these digital products out while I'm kind of riding the success of the first one, because I don't want that to die down or anything. I want to kind of keep that momentum going.
How's it doing? Is it still up there on the charts?
Yeah, it's last time I looked, it kind of dropped to like number 4, but that's pretty good because I wasn't sure what was going to happen once it went off sale.
Yeah, that's really good for
because it's
long on the chart. Like that's
So well, and I'm anxious. I'm just hoping that once it gets on these other marketplaces, if it can do similar to what it's doing on Design Cuss as it is on the other marketplaces, I mean that's pretty awesome. So
that's cool.
That's way cool. Plans for me. Let me show this again. So these are my plans. I will so it's Monday. So I got to design the background and scene, and I'm doing that in Z-Space. So it's like 2D elements in a 3D space. So it's a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to do that for the studio. And then I'm going to animate 2 scenes in that studio. I've got one more scene to do in the bookstore. I've got another asset to build for the booth that he's in, and then another scene where 2 characters meet, and then another scene where there's a close-up, and then another scene background that I need to build. That should get me to Wednesday. So, and then I also, I forgot, I've been I've got 2 different freelance things going that have been one is contracted and paid for now, and so the other is in conversation, to the point where I'm taking on enough right now that my wife is wanting me to not take on as much, mainly because she's concerned about the load that I'm taking on. But all of the things are paying really well, so it's hard to turn it down. It's one of those feast or famine things, because it's animation is good money when you can get somebody to pay for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So those are my plans.
Whew.
All right. Should we jump into our topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I see we've got some people in the chats, but not as many as we normally have. So if you're there, say hi. On this particular topic, I want to try something different. So I need to know who's here live with us right now. So
It's weird. I'm not seeing the chat.
yeah, I don't see anybody commenting yet. I just see that there's
it.
a few people that are viewing it. So
Okay, I just got it.
So we've got some passive people. But Josh, why don't you kick off today's topic?
All right, so it's pretty much just quitting crappy habits.
Okay.
So what brings it up is, like, there's been a couple of times in my life where I've had to do this just in general with like habits of bad eating, or not exercising, or bad like work habits, like procrastination is like a bad work habit I had to kind of quit. And what's weird is, until you quit procrastination, you don't realize it's an addiction, and then you do it and it's an addiction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of this kind of behavioral stuff. And one thing that's been a cool byproduct of, like, even committing to like the 48-hour art check with Corey, and kind of one of our reasons for constantly doing it. Anyhow, one of the reasons for us constantly doing it, and me feeling confident to kind of take on the thing I did, is that I tend to be doing pretty well with things I commit to, and kind of accomplishing those goals. And so I think I was thinking about it, and I just was realizing that, like, one of the things I don't like about myself as a person is that I am kind of addicted to vaping. And that was just vaping nicotine. That was like a long process to get off of cigarettes, to kind of replace it with vaping nicotine. So I was replacing one bad habit with a less bad habit, but still a bad habit nonetheless. And I was realizing, like, I really don't like that about my personality. I don't like being reliant on something. I don't like that something can kind of, like a consumer product can kind of run my life. Like, I just personally don't think that's a good place to be. So I decided to kind of cut that out and commit to it, just like I would with like the art check or anything like that, where I'm like, not a ton of pre-planning, just kind of like, I know what's involved. Like, obviously, if you look up online process of like quitting nicotine, it goes through like, oh, these are usually the withdrawal symptoms and steps. But other than that, it's just like being like, okay, so I need to set a time and just be like, that's the last time I get to have nicotine, and then that's it. So I set it at 10, and then I publicly committed to it on Facebook, and kind of explained to people that I didn't really, and I think this is important with kicking any bad habit, but for me, I didn't want to hear a bunch of people's bad suggestions on what they would do if they were me to kick it.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. This happens on Facebook. Like, let's say you want to lose weight, and you're like, hey, I'm going to take on this weight challenge, like this weight loss challenge. 20 other people are going to be like, no, dude, here's how you lose weight. Here's what you should do. Like, everyone is an expert when it comes to somebody else's committing to something. But my point was, I just wanted to be able to commit and be like, no, I'm just going to quit. And I don't really want to hear why it's bad or anything like that. I just want people to hold me accountable and hopefully be encouraging. And that's about it. So I cut the habit. I've gone through since then, like, mass withdrawal.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. and it's kind of fluctuated from that to a lot of very like hard to kind of focus moments, especially in the first day. It was kind of like being in a cloud all day. And then within the last, like yesterday, it was easier to focus, but I just found myself being filled with rage unexpectedly throughout the day, which was a weird feeling. And moments where I could usually like kind of hit like a point of irritation with something and just be like, meh, whatever. There was no meh, whatever. It was just like rising action with no calm. And so that was interesting to kind of ride through and try to not regress, you know. And then today's just been mostly feeling pretty normal and just fighting a lot of consonant urges to just like, well, just reward yourself. You've done well, you know, that kind of thing. But what I've found is helpful to it is, and I think why I've been successful at it so far is, one, I acknowledge that I have a bad habit that I want to get rid of. Two, I acknowledge that if I just kept waiting to kind of get rid of this habit, nothing's going to happen. Kind of akin to our 48-hour art check, where it's like if we just wait for these projects to get done and these magic windows to kind of get these things executed to happen, we're going to be waiting till, you know, whenever, and that may actually be never, you know, for things to get done. So,
yeah.
So that was helpful. And then I think one of the other things that's helped with it is kind of like spite. And I know that's terrible, but I know there are like 2 or 3 people I know who are sort of the type of people who, if I were to go after something good in my life, they would be like, yeah, but you're not going to get that. And at the same time, they're also the type who, if you try to do something positive, will be like, well, we'll be here when you fail.
Right.
You know, and so those are kind of the people I'm keeping in mind with achieving this too. Like if I have like a moment of being like, you know, you should just have a little bit of nicotine, like as a reward, I'll be like, yeah, and then those people would be really happy about that. I'm not going to give them that.
Yeah.
So there's that.
One thing I think that I really liked about the way that you did this was you specifically went out of your way to show things that you wanted and didn't want. So like you in your post, because one thing I like, and this is I've never been addicted to nicotine, you know, or alcohol or anything like that, but I think I've got a sugar addiction. I think I've got other thing, but one thing that I liked about what you did is that you were public about it. Another thing that I liked about what you did is that you were able to say, these are the type of comments that I'm looking for, and these type of comments are not helpful and not welcome.
Yeah.
And I like that because I think people's natural inclination is to just toss advice. Like the other day, I think a week ago, I posted that I was doing intermittent fasting and meal replacement, and that I was down a few pounds, and everybody started giving me advice. I literally didn't say, it was fine because I don't care, but like I didn't say, hey, what works for you, or blah 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 blah. I think it's just like a natural thing for people to just toss out advice like that. But because I think it's just part of like conversational things.
Oh yeah.
But knowing yourself well enough to know like, this type of thing isn't going to help me right now. I know I'm going to be vulnerable, and this isn't going to be working for me.
Yeah.
And stating that, I think, was really, really good. The other thing is just like, I think bad habits thrive in the darkness.
Yeah.
And so, so coming out publicly and saying like, you know, this is what's going on, and I'm being public with this and all that jazz. I just think it's it's all really good, and it's all one of those things where you just put stuff into the sunlight, you give yourself public accountability, you set up ways that you're going to be successful without being perfect. And I just don't see how it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Yeah, let me clarify too on that, because like I do think it was really important that I also laid out some ground rules for myself. So like, for instance, the accountability part, I'm not necessarily wanting to be like publicly shamed if I fail at this. That's not what I'm like establishing.
Right.
But I am forcing myself to, if I mess up, let's say like tonight, if I were to just like really quickly sneak out and have like a little bit of nicotine, just a little bit, I would have to, by my own rules, post on that Facebook chat
Right.
that I screwed up and I have to start from zero again. And that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to feel good having to put that, even though I know in all likelihood that will probably happen, but I don't want it to.
Right.
And it's been a really good, like, that in itself has been a really good motivator to like keep me from screwing up on it, because I'm like, I don't want to go back from there and be like, yep, got to start all over again. But yeah, I also thought it was really important to clarify that, like, I'm not looking for people to preach or explain why what I'm doing is so bad for me, because I clearly know it. Like, we live in an era where it's really difficult to not know that nicotine is bad.
Right.
And so I don't really need that, or like pictures of like bad results of nicotine. Like, you know, I think what I needed was just people to be aware of it and to kind of hopefully support. And then, like I said, I think I even mentioned, because I know there's a lot of other people who are like, have the attitude, and this goes with any bad habit, but people, including myself, will sometimes have the attitude of like, well, that person's got that thing, ha ha ha. Like, or they'll be like, well, that must be a hard struggle for you. And so I wanted to make sure to throw that in there as well and be like, look, if you want to open up that can of worms and start criticizing like my kind of bad habit, cool, but just know like your bad habits are completely on the table if you do that. So that was, I thought, kind of important, you know, to kind of throw in there too. Or I was going to be like, if people wanted to kind of get into a finger pointing kind of like, oh, you've got terrible habits, I was like, just bring it. Okay, let's have that conversation, because I guarantee if I like turn the hood of whatever you've got, like, I'm sure there's some dirt underneath there. So yeah. So anyhow, I don't know. We'll see. It's been an interesting thing so far. We'll see how it goes, you know.
Yeah. So so I want to go. I want to try something here. I'd like to invite members of the chat onto the show. Whoever wants to come on, just for a couple minutes, and then we'll kick you back off. If anybody's interested, on Twitter or Facebook, hit me up if you want to talk about a habit. It doesn't have to be an addiction. It doesn't have to be. It can just be a habit that you're trying to break or whatever. Just while we're talking, so just something I'd just be interested to pick brains. The reason is I'm super curious on. I find like human experience to be very similar, and there are ways to kind of pick apart like the variables that can cause you to be more likely to succeed and the variables that can cause you to be more likely to fail. And so I've found with like developing good habits that putting yourself on a schedule, public accountability, checking in with somebody that you care about their opinion, and making certain things a non-negotiable. Those are all kind of recipes for success. I've been less successful at getting rid of bad habits. And so I'm kind of curious if that formula for developing good habits works to kind of like deprogram.
Yeah.
Or if there's kind of like a different thing. And so that's kind of, because a lot of what you're doing right now, Josh, kind of falls along the lines of somebody getting into the habit of making comics, somebody getting into the habit of doing art every day, somebody teaching themselves how to animate, or, like developing good skills. But instead of an additive thing, it's a subtractive thing. And so have you noticed that you've had to like add in kind of something to fill the void? Like there's a vacuum?
Yeah. I mean, so one thing is like, there's definitely like an oral thing to smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And so and here's the other thing. It'd be cool to use a cessation device to quit, except that I'm quitting a cessation device. So it's like, I'm not trying to quit smoking. I'm trying to quit the nicotine delivery thing I picked up after smoking.
Yeah.
So using like nicotine gum to get rid of my withdrawals for nicotine wouldn't work. So now I'm just using gum, but I'm using just gum, just like chewing gum. So I've been chewing a lot of chewing gum. I have like a lot of snacks. That's something I have to really watch, and I'm glad I've been consistent. I would say, especially if you have a habit like this, that's an unhealthy one, that kind of takes away some hunger. If you're going to boot that habit, like make sure you have an exercise habit in place. Because I'm glad I have already built the consistent workout every night. Because yesterday, I mean, yesterday alone from doing this, I gained 5 pounds in one day.
Wow.
But it's just because, like, suddenly the times where I'd be just having like a smoke break, I'm just like chowing down on snacks, or like just opening the fridge and nibbling on stuff and pretty much doing anything to not do the thing. But what's interesting that you mentioned about like kind of the accountability factor, I think by doing it public the way I did on Facebook, one of the nice benefits is I have like 4 friends that are people that I really care about, personally messaged me, and they were like, dude, if you want to meet up like every day after work to talk about your progress. And they just kind of were like, some of them shared things, like a lot of them, it's like eating things and stuff that they're working on. And pretty much like, I think similar to the art check, I think there's a ton of people out there who are looking for accountability.
Yeah.
From fellow artists and people who are kind of in this weird field that we're all in. And I kind of think there's a desire for that, like on a negative and a positive, like for things we want to get rid of, for things we want to add to our lives. And so I think what's neat about kind of being public and open about that kind of thing is it sort of brings that into play as a reality, like,
Yeah, for sure. I'm having to refresh my thing, so if I get kicked out for a second, just
no worries. Mine is all slow as hell too. So Scott, while Corey's refreshing, have you ever had to like kind of kick like a crappy habit?
Well, I've never smoked or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess the closest thing would just be, trying to diet and things like that. I mean, I've like right now, I've talked about this where I'm running, but I probably could be eating better, even though, I mean, I don't eat horrible. That's the thing that bothers me. It's not, I don't go out and do a lot of fast food, but like, I don't know. I find myself like if it was just me, I could probably stick to the diet, but then usually I'll make food for my kids and stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to make something else for me. I'll just eat what they have, And like the other night I made like chicken cordon bleu or like I made a jambalaya or something like that. So, but yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I've got to, that's really what I got to work on is like, and it's also portion control with me.
Yeah.
And I guess, there are certain things that I just like, I love chips and salsa. So like if I get a bag of chips and some salsa, I'm just going through them. So yeah, I mean, just stuff like that. I don't know.
But luckily like chips and salsa are not the worst. Like, I mean, because you know, if you get the right chips and salsa, they aren't the most fattening thing. You know what I mean? Like that's actually can be a fairly healthy thing. Just not.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I like legitimately have a sugar addiction. I can't sit down. Like I talk about like cookies, the way that alcoholics talk about like a drink. Like I can't sit down and just have a cookie. Like I want all of the cookies. Like I will, oh, I'm going to have an Oreo. And then I've eaten the entire column of Oreos. And it's like, well, I just made a meal out of 27 Oreos. So I guess I should have a glass of milk or something.
Luckily for me, I don't like Oreos. Yeah, I don't have much of I mean, every once in a while I'll get a craving for something sweet. For me, it's probably more salty. That's why I think the chips and salsa. But like, there's certain things that are just too. Well, that's not totally true though, because I mean, I do like sweet stuff. Like if I, right now, when I drink, I usually drink rum because it's sweet and I like that. So I don't know. It's just a different thing. But and I've never tried to. I've never like. I don't like drink every day and everything like that. So I've never really thought I needed to quit, and I can, most of if I needed to, I could just, not drink, but
yeah, I don't, like for me, I drink, but I don't drink to the point like with nicotine for me, it was just more of like realizing this is a thing. Like I literally, if I go like an hour or two in the day without it, I feel like terrible. And like it literally was something I was having to take to feel normal. And like to me, that's like if that's where drinking were for me, I'd be like, boom, like that would have to go. Because for me now, like drinking's like, I don't know, it's Tuesday, it's been a week and a half, and I feel like relaxing, so I pour myself a drink. That's like that seems to me like if that's where even vaping were for me, I don't think I'd be concerned because I'd just be like, oh, okay, it's just this casual thing like video games or something like that. But if it's to the point where I'm like I literally cannot be who I am without the stupid thing, that's where I'm like, so that's why I cut this. Although it is weird because it's like, I have to go back into the workplace tomorrow and I'm like, that's going to be an interesting thing to navigate with, like basically going in with a crutch. And that's a little scary. Without a crutch, I guess.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think if I psych myself out about it, then it's not going to happen. And one of the things that's been really helpful throughout this whole process is just trying to catch myself when my brain like escalates something beyond the significance it is. So it's like you'll feel like, oh, I'm never going to act like you'll kind of think in extremes, and it's like any kind of mental thing where you have to kind of go, really, is that honestly true? Like, will I sincerely like never feel normal if I don't? Like, it never seems like a pretty extreme statement, like catching moments like that where there's like these extreme exaggerated statements that I think come from. To me, I think those tend to come from like more addiction than from yourself. Because I think if you're truly honest about something, you're not going to usually make a lot of like never statements.
Yeah, right. There, we've got a couple comments, and I'll just I've got one person that messaged me. If you guys are interested in coming on, let me know. But I just wanted to bring up these. I wanted to bring up these comments here. So Kayla is saying, I actually dedicated myself to quit smoking in November 2017, and the last time I actually smoked was April of 2018. I had to seriously straighten up and stop so I could go to college where I'm at. So that's cool. And then Seth Jackman is saying, visiting California for a bodybuilding competition, desperately trying to quit drinking. May have hit rock bottom this week. Bad decisions. So those are two interesting comments, because one of the things that I find about bad habits, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an addiction, but there's usually some sort of event or realization that you come to where there's an external factor where you're like, oh, I've made these decisions based on this, or I don't feel like myself without this thing, or I want to do this thing or go here or whatever, and this is precluding me from doing that. I wonder how much of that is tied into, like the need. Like, I don't think necessarily everybody needs to hit like rock bottom, but I do wonder how much people need to like recognize the need for a change. So you were mentioning the 3-day weekend, Josh. I'm just curious on that. Like, that was kind of the opportunity, but what was the kind of catalyst?
So that's the interesting part. Like, the catalyst initially of quitting like regular smoking and going to vaping was like very much just like my fingers were like yellowing and like my teeth were getting stained, and it was kind of becoming this gross habit that just kind of grossed me out. And I was like starting to see the writing on the wall, like, oh, okay, this is actually going to be that like anti-smoking commercial in a few years if I keep down this path,
Right.
So I committed pretty heavily to doing like just that transition to vaping, which I wouldn't recommend if somebody's like not quitting cigarettes. But it was very effective for me to quit cigarettes because like I just kind of gave up cigarettes through it. And then I have to say the motivating factor in this one is more just like, it's hard to explain, but it's like I've been noticing that there are things that I'm very proud of that I've accomplished in the last few years. And that thing feels like just like a mark on it. Like, it feels like a stain on what I can feel good about.
Yeah.
And then I also had a relative make kind of a snarky comment, not close relative that I'll mention. And I just kind of felt like out of spite, I want to just call it quits. Just out of spite, because I feel like if I can take away that criticism, they got nothing. and I'm like, that to me, I know that's a terrible motivating factor, but I was like, yeah, that could work. And it is something that it's kind of been on the back of my mind for a while. Of like something I know that's a bad habit that I do that I just need to kick. So I don't know if I'll be like, I really do want to be clear about like, I don't know if like the next time we do this, I might be very well just vaping and just like whatever, but I do think it's a habit I want to kick, like a bad habit that I want to kick, but I didn't have to hit rock bottom for that. But I think it's partially, it kind of came out of, weirdly enough, just other things like winning at other things makes you want to better the stuff that you're not winning. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. When you get a kind of a taste for success.
Yeah. And I don't mean winning like in commercial terms or anything like that. I just mean like in the sense of like life goals and like spiritually, like spiritual growth. And if you come across something that you feel is kind of holding you back, like that seems like something you'd want to kind of correct,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised because I do think that is something that very easily you could have to hit rock bottom to change. For me, it hasn't really been that. So.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting thing that there's got to be some kind of catalyst or wake up call to that. I find. I was just talking about this, and this is only one example. I don't think this is the only way that you can do this, but I find like being a member of a group, whether that be a marriage or relationship or a family or a community or, whatever, you have to kind of figure out how your actions are being perceived and how they affect other people. Whereas if you're kind of just not interacting in those environments, it doesn't really matter. Like I never questioned myself as like a single professional living on my own in my studio apartment. I never had that like introspection of like,
yeah,
am I being a jerk? Am I being inconsiderate?
Yeah.
But like once I began, like getting a little bit more mature and then coming into a situation where, like I cared about other people's opinion a lot, then I started realizing like, oh, these are actually a series of behaviors that I'd like to mitigate or eliminate or, and so I think it's kind of interesting, whether that be like an accountability thing, like an art check, or whether that be like a relationship, or whether that be, like a community of people online or in person. I think one of those things that you realize is that you see that your actions have an impact. And I've heard that a lot of people start trying to lose weight or get healthy, when they have a kid and they're like, oh, I want to be around for this kid's wedding, or whatever. And so there's that kind of external thing that also kind of comes into play.
Yeah. And I mean, I can definitely say like that was a thought that came across my mind, is like just sort of as a dad, do I want to communicate to my kid that it's okay to be controlled by a product? And like, to me, that was a big one.
Right.
So that does tie into that. I'd say that's definitely a factor in like exercise too, because I hope to have a little bit of energy to keep up with a 6-year-old, and in order to do that, you have to kind of exercise. And it is interesting to think like how much of a lot of things, even motivation in art, would be like a little different, I think, were I to not have a kid. Hey.
Yeah. Hey. So Frank is here to tell us
hey, Frank.
Real quickly a little bit about his story. So
right.
How you doing, man?
I still procrastinate a lot, but I've gotten more into doing my art and just doing challenges like the one with Take Me to Your Leader, listening to live streams, motivational speakers, walking more, drinking more water. So just replacing bad habits with good habits.
Nice.
And I'm more active. It's helping me health-wise. I was diagnosed with diabetes, and that really kicked my butt into gear to like, well, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So even the doctor was kind of like hesitant, because I told him I don't want to do the pills. I'm going to work on it on my own. And I've already lost 10 pounds. And that's just trying to eat right. So
yeah. That's fantastic, man.
Sometimes you need that wake-up call. I don't know if any of you guys follow Kevin Smith at all, but he had that heart attack, and since then, he totally changed his way of life, and he's like lost all the weight, and he's like running, and like, yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
I know a couple people pretty closely that do marathons and stuff, and one of the inciting incidents that made them do marathons was like early onset of diabetes, and they were like, oh crap. So they, wanted to do something about it, because nobody wants that, to happen based on it. Like, if it's not a life decision that's leading to it, great, whatever, that's out of your control. But if it's something that's like you have control over, like that's kind of akin to what I'm dealing with too, where I'm like, I don't want to fall based on something I chose, like
right.
That's the main thing. So. Yeah.
So Frank, what's been one of the biggest successes that if you were to say somebody else came to you and said, hey, what's the best piece of advice? What are some of the things, what's like the number one thing that you found that has really been working for you in overcoming bad habits?
I think for me it will be my faith. And I found a mentoring group within my church called the Choose to Change program, where the mentor just he talks about changing your life, but it's your choice. And he gave this illustration of walking on a plank of wood over a 10-feet building. Would you do it? No, because no sane person would do it. Okay, now on the other end, picture the person you love the most and the building's on fire, would you do it then? And I said, yes, because what changed was my purpose. So that's what I took from it. Just why do I want to change my life? Why do I want to be healthy? Why do I want to get better? And ultimately is for my children, or just to help others and just to help myself. So it's just finding your purpose. And Josh, I'm very proud of you of quitting smoking, because you are gonna quit.
Yeah, not too concerned about it. Weirdly enough, I mean, it's tough to go through, but
That's awesome. I love that. Thanks for coming on. I'm gonna kick you back off, and we'll see you back in the chat.
that's awesome.
Thanks, Frank.
All right.
Good to put a face to the name.
I know, right?
It's awesome.
So rad.
I love that. I love the idea of adding like a purpose to it, because I think that's one of the biggest things that I don't know. I didn't think of that, but now that he brought it up, I'm thinking a lot about how, like, if I have a reason, because I mean, it's been for me, and this is probably sleep deprivation mixed with anxiety, imposter syndrome, depression, or whatever. But like a few days ago, I was just like, why am I putting all this effort into this? This is pointless. Nobody's going to care. It actually reminded me a lot of that series of panels in Quarterly Stories, Josh's comic, because it wasn't to the point of that level of intensity, but I was just like,
but that same logic,
the same logic, the same thought process, and having kind of a higher purpose to be able to fight those type of like thoughts, because that's the stuff that derails you, is, when you're alone, or when you're in a situation where that habit was very common, and that was what you're doing, or that type of thing. And if you have like a greater purpose, like, if at the other end of that 10-foot plank was my kid, there's no question that I'd go do it.
Let me throw another thing in there too that ties into what was mentioned. So like I mentioned this on Facebook, but like, so because I'm a Christian and I really believe in God, and I sincerely believe like that the God I believe in is super powerful, and that prayer is powerful. So I don't think this was a testing God kind of thing, but it was more of a testing me thing, because I mentioned that in my like breakdown of like what my goal was to quit. Part of it was, I think that God is capable of making me, a flawed human being, be able to do this thing, even though it seems like I won't be able to do it. By saying that publicly, I have now kind of put it on the line that like I am completely relying on God, and I'm hoping God delivers, because that's really super embarrassing for me as a Christian if that doesn't happen. So that gives me more incentive to deliver. But at the same time, I also think kind of works on a cross-platform kind of way, because like I said, that's literally all I'm going to rely on to get through it, along with other things. And I'm not saying people need that element of it, but I do think that for me, I think that makes it more powerful, because I really do think that's kind of the main thing that will actually allow me to achieve what I'm hoping to here.
Right.
Which is weird, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really interesting. I'm trying to think of something that I've overcome or something. And I think my main problem is I don't have any good stories, because I have those bad habits that I have. I still have them, but let me do this for those watching, because I think this will really hit home with a lot of us. If you don't think that you're addicted to something, when's the last time that your leg itched rather than you thought that your phone was vibrating? because we've gotten to the point where actually as human beings, we've been rewired by these external products. And it's called phantom vibration syndrome, where you might not even have your phone in your pocket, but you think, oh, there's a notification. And like Pavlov's dog, we like jump to this thing. We're like, oh yeah, I need to see what that notification is or whatever. We've like conditioned ourselves to do that. It's a fascinating thing. And the other thing, the challenge that I like to throw down is just the next time you're home and your phone battery dies, just don't plug it in for a couple hours and just see what happens. And it's like, it's hard. And it's this stupid little glass and plastic rectangle, but we have become like reliant on this thing. And I can speak from, I'm not talking from like a holier than thou situation. I'm describing like personal experiences where like sometimes my phone will die and I'll be like, oh, I need to immediately plug this thing in because this has to, like, for some reason, every waking moment of my life, I have to be connected to, whatever. And then I'm just going to run a little, because I'm dumb. I always run these little sociological experiments. I'm just going to see how many times I think about my phone or how many times I reach it, knowing that it's dead. I know that it's dead. And it's so frequent, like several times an hour. I'm like, for no reason at all, I'm just gonna check my phone. It's like, oh yes, it's still dead. Yeah. It's kind of an interesting thing. Like some of it is just what my hand naturally does. Some of it is, like we have all come up with things to avoid being bored. Boredom is like the worst state of mind that your brain can experience. And so as soon as the instant that there's a hint of boredom, you're like, entertainment, where is it? A thing to do. And for a lot of us, that's our phones or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a little scary. I mean, obviously I'm old enough, we're all old enough to remember when, we didn't have the phones and it was okay if you didn't, if you could miss a call or I don't know. It's crazy how reliant we are. And, I make the excuse that I'm pretty good about just kind of eliminating a lot of the nonsense. Like I'm usually not endlessly scrolling through Facebook and Instagram unless I'm in a, like you said, the kind of the boredom thing, unless I'm in a place where there's nothing else to do. If I'm like in line at a grocery store or something like that, or not that that's the only time I do it, but I'm not that bad at it, but I am constantly checking for like notifications and things because, I make the excuse that, well, this is for business and everything like that. Right. But, do I really need to check it? I mean, is it that important? And you get to points where like you're waiting, like why haven't I got any notifications lately?
Yeah.
Or, it's like, yeah. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Just one of the funny things that's kind of come up out of this. And by the way, I also forgot to give credit, but Mike Emirates successfully quit cigarettes, and he had posted something on Facebook that might have been one of the inciting sparks for me to kind of start this thing too, because Mike's one of those guys, he sets his mind to something, he does it. And I guess for him, that was one of his, like the inciting incidents for him being able to do that with multiple things, was just being able to quit that. And I was like, well, at first I felt like, yeah, well, I did that too. And then I'm like, wait, but I'm still doing this stupid vaping thing. So I can't really join on that train 100%. So that might have been part of it. But one of the things that's come up with that is the realization of like all of the things that I associate with this stupid activity. Like, so it's like relaxation, calm, thinking through things. So like if I'm hitting a conundrum or something, or like a big problem, like a critical thinking issue, I'll have a smoke, right? Think it through. Yeah. And it doesn't hurt that nicotine's a stimulant. So like it is giving me stimulation to help me think through things. However, there's a million other things that are way healthier that can be a stimulant to cause, like for instance, just deep breathing can be a stimulant.
So I'm gonna read Kayla's comment and then ask a question. Kayla says the rough thing is that when that was a coping mechanism, and then you get put in a situation where you can no longer rely on that, and all of a sudden you need to find another coping mechanism. And there's a few comments kind of related to that. So I'm curious, with that, do you think just human beings in general, I mean, we're meant to act, we're meant to do things, and I've heard us described as kind of like just basically we are just a giant ball of habits, that we've developed. And so do you think that in eliminating something you need to add something?
I'm curious about it. Like, I think that inevitably things will be added by elimination. Like, so to me, I don't think I have to overthink, like, what am I going to fill that with? Because it answers itself. Like, a perfect example, I didn't like go out and buy a bunch of gum before starting this. I just noticed that like I was fiending for a smoke, and I just kind of went through things, and I found some like one of those big things of gum that my wife has in her car, and I just popped one in my mouth, and it helped me feel less anxiety because I had something to do. So I was like, okay, note to self, next time I go to the store, I need to buy some of those packs of gum so that I have a go-to when I start feeling that thing. I think those things will present themselves, meaning like I'm kind of curious to find out what they'll be. Because like, for instance, I usually really enjoy smoking with coffee. And this morning, once again, I'm not necessarily going with all the advice that's on these websites and stuff too, because I'm not cutting coffee.
Yeah.
I really enjoy coffee. So I had coffee. But the second I had coffee, I really was thinking about the thing I pair with coffee all the time. That I just didn't really replace with anything. So I'm kind of curious I'm curious when the rubber hits the road and it hits like really stressful situations. I'm imagining I'm probably going to have to rely more on like deep breathing and more meditation and prayer than I've had to in the past.
So,
because I can't think of anything else that would kind of de-escalate that sort of feeling.
Right.
Other than those things. Is there a replacement?
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. It's really I've never had coffee. I was raised in a way to try to avoid anything that's really habit forming.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't have bad habits, because I have tons of them. But I've never had coffee. I've never had alcohol. I've never had any of that stuff. So I don't know. But I know that there are situations where I've classically conditioned myself to where when certain things show up, I automatically go into this is when I behave this way, or this is when I do these things, or this is when I do that. And so I get that, because I remember in high school when we were learning about operant conditioning and classical conditioning, it was like, watch what happens when this, and it's like, oh yeah, I totally do these things. And everybody started, and my teacher was like, yeah, like it was really funny. I just sold my house and moved to a different house. And normally, I need to go to the bathroom at the end of my run. And I was running, and I ran by my old house, and immediately I was like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And I was like, nope, that's got to change. But that's not because she had to go that instant, but because that had been associated in her mind with that other thing.
Yeah.
And so those connections are really fascinating as well.
Oh yeah, they're richly wired too, and it's fascinating how richly wired. Like with a bad habit, you'll notice very quickly how many things you've connected. Because, like I said, throughout my day, I'm like, I'm in the car. I need to, and then I'm like, wait, why does being in the car just sudden equate to this terrible habit? Like anything, oh, that was a good thing. I should include that bad habit. Oh, that was a bad thing. I should include that bad habit. It's like the go-to that's kind of intertwined and woven in there, which is, to me, like more confirmation. Like the further it goes and those things come up, the more it's like confirmation it's something I should cut out,
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Okay, I have a couple comments to bring up. Give me 5 seconds, because for some reason right now I have to restart this window every time I want to bring up a comment.
Yeah,
My comments aren't loading, and I saw it on the YouTube, but I'm not seeing them.
yeah, I'm not seeing the comments either.
Yeah.
I actually was chatting with StreamYard while we were talking in the help section, and
Yeah.
they suggested refreshing the window. That's what I keep refreshing. Is
Yeah.
I'm getting the comments and I can see them, but they're not.
No, there's like a delay. Yeah, totally.
New comment isn't coming in until I refresh my window.
Yeah.
So, but Victor had a really good comment that this is totally me. Okay. With so much advertising, it's easy to manipulate the mind. I think if I had an addiction to anything, it's something to do with hamburgers.
Yep.
And I know that sounds stupid because it's hamburgers and it's not like Coke or something actually addictive. But like if I'm like driving by and I see a fast food sign, I might not even be hungry.
Mhm.
I'm just immediately like, yep, I definitely need a hamburger. Or like if I get bored, I'm like, oh man, you know what I could really use right now, even though I just ate, is I could use some Jack in the Box, or I could go for some Burger King. And then you add to that constant barrage of like advertisements, whether it be billboards or whether it be TV ads or whatever. They play super hard on that kind of association.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, I'm just as we're doing this, I'm identifying. I remember one time. This is something I'm not proud of, but since that's what we're talking about, I'll bring it up. I remember one time I just did not feel good. Like I just felt like run down and gross, and I was just like, man, I had a headache, and I was like, I need a burger, and so I went and got the nastiest, greasiest, biggest, whatever thing burger, and I felt fine after that. Like all of the headache went away and the whatever. And so there's something in fast food for me that I'm probably, and I don't eat it as frequently now as I used to, but it's definitely something for me. And it's weird to think of, like, we kind of do this societal shame thing where there's certain things that are like somewhat shameful, or that we kind of look down on them. Like, you're lesser of a person, or you don't have willpower if you're whatever, whether that be smoking or drinking or whatever. But there are other things where it's like, there are other things where their habits, their addictions, and yet society's like, well, that's fine. That's not that big of a deal.
Oh yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird because where is it? Because one thing that really struck home with me, that your initial comment was that you were saying, that you were saying that you don't like being controlled by like a product. And it's fascinating that, like, I think one of the most important things about being human is autonomy and being able to make choices and being able to decide how you feel about things and decide how you think about things, and like being rational and thinking through stuff. That's one of the main things that separates us from most of the other animals in the animal kingdom. And so anything that takes away your agency, or anything where you just give servitude to this thing, I'm always hesitant to. It always makes me nervous, whether there's a social stigma or not.
Yeah, and I think I would kind of agree with the stigma thing too, because it's easy for people to kind of look at somebody who smokes and go like, oh, what a terrible person and what a horrible habit, and they made really bad decisions and they're totally addicted to something. Meanwhile, half the people saying that have a certain level of diabetes from like overeating and eating too many sugars, and like not having positive workout habits, and like, or like at the same time are like, addicted to some other behavior. Like maybe they're addicted to like shopping, and they're terrible with finances, and they're like blowing their money on like products that are being made in third world countries by kids. Like there's some bad habit everyone's doing. And one thing, like in my post that I really wanted to point out was just like, look, like this is my, like, to me, this is my worst habit. And so I'm going to try to cut this. if you want to comment on it and call it like the worst thing ever, great, but let's open up that thing. Like, are you
Yeah.
addicted to, these other behaviors? Because there's a lot of behaviors. Pretty much everybody has one or two. That doesn't justify it, and that's why I'm like taking action and trying to kind of knock out a bad behavior. But at the same time, it's a worthy thing to think about, because, like, like I could go a whole day without my phone, no problem. I know a lot of people who couldn't.
Right.
There's things like that, like, I think pretty smart. So yeah.
Yeah, you bring up, man, you bring up shopping, and that's a
So sorry,
huge.
I have to hop out for a second, but I'll be right back. So
Yeah, no, that's fine.
keep going.
Yeah. So shopping is like a huge thing for me, because I'm realizing now that I have noticed in myself several times where I've been like sad or dissatisfied or whatever, and immediately I start like scrolling through like Amazon, or I want to wander around the toy aisle of something, and then I'm like, I don't actually need anything right now. Like, there's nothing that like came to mind where I'm like, oh, I need that thing. I just didn't like the emotion that I was feeling at the time, and so I like getting packages, and I like spending money. that is totally kind of one of those habits. I don't know if you'd call that a coping mechanism or not, but it's definitely something. Have you thought of anything, Scott? Anything that kind of comes up that might be a bad habit or a coping mechanism that you don't like?
Well, like you said, just the phone and the social media, that's a big one that I really wasn't considering. And again, maybe it's just me, not really recognizing if I have a problem or not. But I don't think, judging by the other people I see, I don't think that I'm as bad with the phone as a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've had this certain thing. I'm not much of a shopper, but there has been times where it's just like there's this thing I kind of want, but I probably don't need it or whatever. But then I just get it in my head, and it's like, nah, I think I'm just going to get this. But it's very few and far between. So maybe I just don't have much of an addictive personality. I don't know. And
Oh man,
so
you're lucky.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I've to a certain extent I've been there with a lot of the stuff you're talking about, but not too bad. So I don't know.
Do you have good habits that you're addicted to? Like, I notice, like, every time we talk about exercising, you'll go on long runs frequently.
No, it's not. Well, I don't know if I'd call it an addiction, because I could very easily just like decide not to do it. But it's like I constantly it's not like, oh, I got to get up and run. It's like I have to kind of force myself to do that. Like,
Right.
But I kind of feel guilty if I don't too. Like, I guess that's probably normal though. Like,
So here's something I know, because we've had this conversation. What if you were to go a few days without creating something?
How many is a few days?
I don't know.
Right now, I'm kind of feeling like, there's a lot of stuff I've got to get done, so I won't. But I kind of feel like I need a little break, like a little vacation right now. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I can take that right now. And that's probably just because I haven't done that in a while. It's like usually in the summer I'll do something. We'll do like a staycation, because all the hotels here, because it's so hot, no one comes here. So the hotel for the locals, they'll give you awesome deals on hotels and stuff. And I haven't done any of that this summer. I haven't went to a pool, went swimming, did anything. I used to have like summer passes, like when my kids don't really want to go anymore, so I stopped getting the summer passes. But we used to have a big water park here. We would go to that, I haven't really. It seems like I haven't done anything. I am kind of itching to I don't know if that's necessarily a habit, but But I think I could go a few days. But I am. I guess you could say I'm. Kind of addicted. I'm definitely, you could call me a workaholic. I think probably all three of us are, probably.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody on this art check isn't a workaholic.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like habits. we've been talking about a lot of bad habits, but they're not always bad. But some of them that are good in excess are really bad.
Yeah.
And you're talking, Scott, right now, like you might need a break. Like I've been feeling for the past couple days that probably for the past month, I've been pushing too hard.
Yeah.
And, like I've set this arbitrary deadline on myself. And then in addition to that, like all this freelance work came, and instead of saying no, I've just added it. so like now I had this deadline, which was pretty intense anyway, right? To get like an animated short film done in less than 30 days is pretty intense. And then on top of that, I haven't turned down work that I probably should have turned down. So I don't know.
That's a good one. Like saying no, that's something that that I definitely sometimes have a problem with. That I'd like to. Hey Nick,
How's it going?
But I'll let you guys talk then, since we've got a guest. But
yeah,
You can finish your thought if you want. I mean, I don't want to.
I didn't really know where I was going with this.
So Nick, I think this is the first time I've heard your voice, and you have that deep, buttery radio announcer voice.
I have a fancy device that makes it sound like I have a.
Okay.
But
So
Yeah.
so tell us about your habits and breaking them.
so yeah, I have an incredibly addictive personality. So I get addicted to stuff terribly easy.
Yeah.
To the point where I smoked a lot of weed in high school, and all my friends did tons of different drugs and whatnot. And I tried cocaine once, and I was like, "This is something I can never do again in my life, because if I do, it's over."
Yeah.
But on the smoking thing, one of the things that I found is you only have a finite amount of willpower, so you got to be really careful with how you use that. So like one of the things that I found was very helpful is like if you're quitting smoking or you're quitting vaping or nicotine generally, and you're also putting a lot of pressure on yourself to do things like work out or eat healthy or whatever it is, try to stick to those, but also maybe put them on the back burner.
Yeah.
So you don't put a huge amount of pressure on yourself to like do multiple things at once. And for me, when I was quitting smoking, one of the biggest things that I found is that I tried to quit smoking a number of different times. I've got kind of a funny story about how I actually did it, but I'll circle back to that if you guys, if I don't take up too much time.
Yeah,
But
go
one of the
ahead.
big things that I did was I quit drinking, and I'd never had a problem drinking. But over all the times that I quit smoking, inevitably the thing that would screw me up would be I would be out with friends and I'd have some drinks,
Yeah. That
and
makes
then I
sense.
wouldn't have that willpower, because it lowers the inhibitions just enough that you're like, ah, man, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I mean, we're all just hanging out. So for me, it was like, all
really
right,
good
I'm going
point.
to take like 3 months, and not go to bars, or if I'm going like hanging out with friends and people are having drinks, I'm just going to get, Diet Coke or whatever. And it made it so much easier and it made it stick. So that was the big thing.
I will take that to mind because that's one fear I have. I have a gig at the end of the month, and we get free booze at this gig. And usually, I would have a few drinks, especially since maybe I will opt to have like just Coke or something. Because you're right, like I don't have like a drinking issue, but at the same time, if I like in the past, even when I was doing the vaping thing, it's like, initially when I was transitioning to vaping from smoking, I'd go have a drink and then instantly I'm like lighting up a cigarette because I'm like, man, just this
Yeah.
once. So that's a good idea. I think I might have to keep that in mind for the gig because that's something I've thought about where I'm like, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the other thing that goes
That's a good
to
way
that
of
is
communicating
like, I think most people know what their triggers are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think sometimes that we do is we try to pretend like it's, oh no, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I don't know, I think maybe this end of the month thing, like if they give us, free booze and we're all hanging out, we're having a good time, like maybe that could be a problem thing. It's going to be a problem thing.
Yeah. So in that case,
That's,
don't have booze, and then it won't
Yeah.
be a problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
so
That's smart.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that helped me, I don't know if this will help anybody else or yourself with this, but I got on Wellbutrin. It's an antidepressant.
Oh, okay.
But at the time, it was marketed as Zyban. You can get a very, very, very low dose of it,
Okay.
and it basically just short circuits the neural pathway that gets you the dopamine hit from nicotine. Not on everybody, but for me, it was amazing because I took it and basically forgot to smoke. So, I was easily a pack a day smoker. And I was out to dinner with friends and I was just like looking around being like, did I leave the gas on or like what? Did I forget to get the mail? Like there's something. And then my friends were like, all right, we're going to go pop outside and grab a cigarette real quick. And I was like, that's it. That's the thing I didn't do. And it was that.
Huh.
So, it looks like you're already good and you're doing your whole thing. But, if anybody else is trying to do it
That's
and
pretty
you
good.
have not tried that before, I would definitely suggest it because one of the things that made it so much easier for me was once I realized that there's a thing I can take to just allow me not to, want to smoke, all of a sudden it took all the pressure off. And weirdly, the idea that it wasn't this life or death, 100% in, 100% out kind of thing. It was like, okay, if I screw it up, I'll just quit again.
Yeah.
Made it so much easier to just, quit and not sort of put that additional stress and pressure on yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
so
like-
that's my sort of trivial sort of addiction things.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Good seeing you, Nick.
One thing I really like about what Nick said there is kind of that you have a limited amount of willpower, which makes it sound kind of bad, like you can't handle a certain amount of stuff. But if you think of willpower as focus,
Mhm.
It's impossible to focus on more than one thing at a time. That's literally the definition of focus.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of an interesting thing to think about, like you're limited, and that's one thing that I see a lot in my own life and in other people is like, they're like, I'm going to make changes. And instead of making like, I'm going to add this good thing into my life, or I'm going to take this bad thing out. They're like, I'm going to make these 57 different changes today. It's like, I'm going to quit smoking, quit drinking, start exercising all the time, quit my job, do this, it's like, it's way more successful to ease into a situation
Yes.
than it is to just like take on the whole world.
So like, here's the other thing like that I think he mentioned that was really important, which is like just the knowledge of like, look, like you may not actually be successful. And that's just a good thing in general with like most things you take on, whether it's good or not. It's like, there's always the possibility of failure, and that's kind of part of it. Another thing I'd just keep in mind with like this kind of thing is a lot of times it's a gradual thing. Like for me, one of my biggest concerns would be my mental health with smoking, because I have spent most of my life without proper tools to kind of deal with like high stress situations and that kind of thing.
Right.
The other thing is I've also spent the last 2 years developing a habit of constant exercise, like on a daily basis, which also happens to be something that's really beneficial to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So because I had done that, it kind of put me in a place where doing this is something that seems possible. But keep in mind, like, because I did this, I have some freelance work for a client that I had to kind of push off.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just inherently going to happen because something had to get pushed, and there's a bunch of non-negotiables, and your glass can only contain so much. So that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of works out with the freelance too, because I think I have to do a lot of that on Monday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
What
So
are we doing with freelance?
okay,
Purpose of us having day jobs is to not freelance. on
can
stuff
I
not
can
our-
I since this is a confessional, uh, I have, and I don't know if this is, well, I know at times it's not healthy, but most of the time it's very healthy. At least very motivating. I'm in a constant state of awareness that at any point in time somebody could pull the rug out from under me. So like I operate as if I might lose my job at all times. And I've you know, and like, and it's hard for people in different circumstances to really understand that mindset.
Yeah.
But I remember somebody was talking about Jay Leno one time, and they were saying that he kind of feels the same way. Even when he was at the top of his game and he was on national television, he was the number one show in his time slot and all that stuff. Like, he's like, I work super hard because I live in constant fear of at any given point I could be homeless like tomorrow. Like, I could just lose everything and whatever. And so for me, this is something that when I was in college, I was more poor than most college students that I know. Like very poor. Like at times, I was really like legitimately not aware where my next meal was going to come from or when I was going to eat again. Like, it was like not like I was never actually homeless. I always had a place to sleep. But I mean, there were definitely times like for a month and a half, I lived off of my aunt's food storage. I ate nothing but tuna 3 meals a day for like 6 weeks straight. So like, now that I did that for several years, I haven't been in that situation for several decades, but now it's very difficult for me to not eat in excess because in my mind, I still feel like I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to eat again soon. And so if there's food available, you know, it used to be a survival mechanism that I would need to like pack it away because I could go a day or two, you know, without. And so now it's like, oh, this meeting I'm going to is catered with pizza. I will have 27 slices. Thank you. You know, it's like, so like, it's become a joke in the department that I'm going to take several trips in the middle of the meeting to the pizza table. And so it's good and bad because it's motivating and I work really hard and I get very good at things very quickly because I'm driven by that. But also there's a dark side of that to where, you know, like it can introduce anxiety or it introduces like weird behaviors. Like I was full 4 slices ago, but there's still pizza available and I still have that thing in the back of my head.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you on that one, Corey. Like for me, it's like a leftovers thing. Like I you know,
100%.
I was always, my parents were always like, you got to finish your food on your plate, and there's kids starving in China and all that stuff. And to the point where I just don't want to see, you know, if there's food in there, it's like, and that's part of the problem because like I'm like, oh, so like I made this dinner and I you know, I want to eat it because it's good, but I probably, you know, but I got to taste it, and that was the main thing. I don't have to eat it 3 days afterwards if it's not something that's healthy for you, just because it's there and you don't want it to go to waste. So yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, I'm there with that. Like I'm obnoxious about that. Where I'm like, we're not done. Like there's still some mashed potatoes left. It's like these are mashed potatoes. They're like these aren't even real mashed potatoes. They're like the dollar six pack. Nope. Like that's going in Tupperware.
Yeah.
Where I live, those they literally fall off the back of trucks.
Fair point.
On the freeway.
Potatoes are plentiful. Sweet. Well, okay, we've been going a ways on this thing, but do we want to kind of start wrapping it a little bit?
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 more comments I want to bring up. So let me refresh again.
So many good comments in the chats. And what's weird is the fact that like on stream, we usually can see it. Can't, but if I go to the live YouTube page, I'm seeing a lot of really good stuff. It's been a kind of fun chat. Oh,
Yeah, I'm kind of digging this this idea of bringing people in for a few minutes to talk to them. It's nice to get to meet people, talk to people that you see in the chat. So
perfect.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that idea a lot. I'm wondering if there would be a downside to posting the link into the chat.
you never know who might, I mean, the people that are usually there, you don't have to worry about, but you never know. Sometimes these people pop in. There are people that just, if they see a live stream going on, they'll just jump into either troll or it doesn't happen often, but especially because we don't have a huge audience.
You also have the authority to take them out.
Yeah, I think we can. I think.
Oh yeah, because we have to invite.
We can add and take people out. It's not like Hangouts. So
yeah, that is true. Yeah.
I actually, this is not a bad idea for like a potential format to make it a little more intuitive and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be super cool. Okay, so
cool.
Nick is saying, to Josh's point about mental health, I think therapy is a really good idea for everyone, and this is something I completely agree with.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to live in California, USC telehealth is free online. Yep. So there's a resource. Also, I like the fact that he's saying that, being lucky enough to live in California. I like that for a number of reasons. But counseling, I was a psych major for a little while, which probably isn't terribly surprising before I changed my mind. And one of the things that I really liked, the definition of counseling that I really liked that I got in this one class was counseling is not for broken people. Counseling is for people. It's what it is it's to give you the tools to navigate everyday life. And so there's less of a stigma nowadays than there used to be, but I still feel like some people are a little nervous to get therapy or get counseling or whatever. But I mean, if you have an opportunity to be able to talk to somebody, I mean, it's super helpful. It's a really good idea. So, and then I liked this one from Frank. He was saying Scott might be addicted to creating. His habit works for him.
100%.
So,
I think all three of us are probably like that.
I know I am, because, and it's one of those I have to kind of keep in check, because it's like everything else. Like any strength can become a weakness. Like if healthy eating can turn into eating disorders, or whatever. But like with that, seriously, if I go a few days without making something, I start to go a little nuts. Like it just doesn't feel okay.
I think a good example of it is like, it's probably good to every once in a while, like jog. It's probably a little okay to do like a marathon every once in a while. If you're ritually doing marathons, that's not even healthy for your body. There's a certain point where it's not even healthy anymore. It's beyond unhealthy because it's just too much. And that's kind of what we're always straddling on these shows, is like that line of like, we want to be running at our peak. We want to be doing the best performance we can. We want to be making as much as we can, optimal as we can. But we're always riding that line of potential burnout, I think. I think we'll kind of push it a little close to that edge.
Well, and who was it? It was Sean McCabe was saying a little while ago. He had kind of a breakdown because he burned out, and he was saying if you're wondering if you've burned out, if you're wondering if you may be burned out, you've already hit burnout.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that's why, like last night when I was like, I'm tired, I should be able to sleep because I don't have insomnia ever. Anyway, and my blood vessel in my eye had burst, and like a foggy thinking, I was like, yeah, I'm probably burnt out. I've probably been pushing too hard. These are signs. These are signs.
Yeah.
let's see. Kayla's got one more, and then we can kind of start to wrap this up. I feel like I love this format of bringing people on, though. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Kayla said, "I'm too anxious to hop on, but I'll share my story. I used nicotine to cope with anxiety and PTSD, and all of a sudden I had to pull that out of my life completely in order to go to college. I didn't even really want to be in college, but I was told that I needed to. And after the first few weeks up in Idaho, I was itching to smoke again. I had to hop onto the counseling and find new coping mechanism. I started playing the ukulele and then discovered designing, and I use both of those as much as I can. Without a new coping mechanism, my mental health would have tanked, and I wouldn't have lasted." And so I love that story because like adding in kind of those positive things. And Caitlin's saying, same. I was way too anxious. Had a lot of mental health issues that presented in some very terrible coping mechanisms. To get on with everything, I had to use the help of others. And she also threw herself into design and music. So,
Yep.
yeah. And I have tried music and am not built for anything involving rhythm.
You and me both, man.
Oh man, I was the marketing director for a company that was launching musical instruments, and so I would do all the branding and the marketing campaign, and I knew a lot about guitars and drums. But then this is when the ukulele craze started happening. You had Jake Shimabukuro do While My Guitar Gently Weeps on the ukulele. You had Julia Nunes, on YouTube, all those guys. And so I was like, I don't know anything about the ukulele community, and ukulele players are drastically different than guitar players, like drastically different. And so we did a bunch of things, but one of the things that I did to get into the mind of ukulele players is we started a ukulele group. And so we got together once a week to play the uke, and I learned like 3 Beatles songs or whatever. And so each one of us would take turns leading each week. And so when it was my turn, I remember like I had people that were like luthiers. I had people that were like designing the guitars and making them, people that like gigged for a living, and they worked their day job here for me doing marketing. And then they'd like go gig on the weekends and evenings and stuff. And then there's me, I'm like this little artist guy. And I'm like, I don't know anything. And so I'd be up there and I'm like, all right, we're going to learn, we're going to learn Blackbird. And so I teach everybody the chords, I draw it on the board and everything. And then I would start playing it and everybody would start singing along. And like all of them in the back are like trying to play along. And this one guy, who's a good friend of mine, would just like, he had a clavinova, which is like, not a clavinova. I can't remember what it's called. It's the box with a hole in it, the snare drum strings on the inside.
Oh, okay.
Percussion box, basically. He would start like tapping out the rhythm on that as if that was going to help. And it doesn't, because my brain doesn't make the connection between the percussion and what my hand should be doing. And then you just see him getting like full body into tapping it and then like hitting it harder and like looking at me more intensely. And I'm like, dude, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't have the ability to translate. Anyway, so music works for a lot of people. Not for me. I'm probably too tired because I'm getting into rambly stories now. But
yeah, I got to chime in. Just like if you're a fan of rock and roll and you're playing in rock and roll bands, it may not be the best way to quit smoking.
Ukulele's pretty safe.
Traditionally, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I had that same guy is a good buddy of mine. He had his studio set of equipment and his gigging set of equipment, and he's like, I don't even bring my gigging stuff in the house because it just smells like stale beer and cigarettes and nastiness.
Yeah.
So like he wouldn't even play his good guitars on stage or bring his good amps with him because he was just like, it's just some weird podunk dive bar in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. Even the recording studio we've been doing, it's like like I said, what I'm putting now is vaping, not smoking.
Right. But
when you stop smoking, you start actually smelling the smoke. Yeah. And where we're recording, it's like people just smoke indoors and it's just like all over the place and there's smoke wafting around. So when I get home, I smell like I used to when I'd smoke, like a pack a day. And I'm amazed that like the next day, like a shirt I was just wearing in that room just smells like it's been just rolling in cigarettes. It's kind of interesting. But I will say thank you guys for letting me kind of chat about this and sharing your stories and stuff too. Because day 3, and I managed to stay off of nicotine. And I will say I want to say this for my future self too. I think sometimes we take ourselves too seriously when we're like, oh, but I can't like cut that out. That's too hard. I think there's a lot to be said for just doing it. Just being like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to try. Cause like I said, I didn't feel 100% confident going into this, and now it's 3 days and I still haven't. So I'm hoping by the next check, I still won't have either. And it supposedly gets easier as you go. So
Well, if it helps, I'm gonna ask you about it.
yeah, no, I'd like to add it. And like I said, if you guys are curious too, on my Facebook, there is a post that I put about this, and I commit to the fact that like if I screw up, I will put it on there. So I'm starting from 0 all over again if I screw up, and you guys will all see it. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We've got one more person that wants to jump on.
Oh, nice.
We're kind of wrapping. Let's see if I can get a message from him soon. While we're waiting for him, if you want to check out your stuff, Scott, where should we go?
You can go to circworks.com. The Comic Maker Toolkit is up there now in my, I think it's the download section. So just check that out. Or if you don't already have the free version, the Comic Maker Starter Kit, you can get that. That is free. Just join the mailing list, and there's all kinds of stuff. If you go to the homepage to alert you where to do that.
Cool. Awesome. And how about you, Josh?
All right. So let me try to jump in here. So you can check out my stuff at circworks.com, where you can find the Comic Maker Starter Kit and the Comic Maker Toolkit, which you guys should get. It's blowing up and it's awesome. That's Scott's stuff, but I still want to promote that stuff because it's great. Excellent stuff. You can also read my comic about faith and mental illness at joshuakemble.com. And also just keep in touch with the art and stuff that I'm doing. But mainly go to topis.io, search for Quarterly Stories, and add it to your library there. It's a way to read my comic on there. And if I'm sounding a little jumbled, it's because I am having major nicotine withdrawal. So that'll be an interesting thing for the next. I think tonight's like I hear it ebbs down from there, but we'll see. All right.
Yeah. Awesome. And if you wanna see my stuff, you can go to CoreyKerr.com and Instagram specifically right now. And if you want to talk about stuff, then we can do Twitter. That's a good place to go. I don't think we're going to be able to get everybody on right now, but I do really like this format of having people on. And so what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to figure out a good way to get everybody a link that's maybe a little bit better than just private messaging me on Twitter and Facebook. But I will say this, in the description of this video, you've got several things that you're looking at. One is you'll see each of our websites, and you can get to social media profiles on there. And I know Josh and I both share the link to this each time. Josh and Scott have a show usually on Thursdays where they go live as well. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on Twitter and Josh on Facebook, and if you hit that bell, most of the time YouTube will give you like a notification when we go live. But we'll be having people from the community on different topics. I think as we move forward, because that was cool. So we'll figure this out. That was kind of the first time we had kind of random unplanned guests from the community. So
I have one thing I want to throw in that's going to tie this into art more too, which is like everything we've been talking about, just bad habits. Just apply bad drawing habits, because like a lot of that could be literally applying the same thing. So if you always draw like a certain way that's bad, maybe you can cut the habit in similar methods as the way we're talking about, you know. So
Yeah.
just throwing that out there.
Yep, that's awesome.
Sure.
All right, so we'll see everybody in a couple days. If you want to do what we're doing, you can check out CoreyKerr.com/48HR, and we've got a link to the streaming service that we're using, which is called StreamYard. If you click on that link and end up spending money with them, then we get a little kickback on that. If you click on that link and don't want to spend money with them, they've got a really cool free version of this that is awesome, and I would highly recommend it. There's a few downsides to it, like resolution, and it's been kind of buggy today, but it's pretty great. So we're also available on podcast stuff and stuff like that, and we will highly encourage you guys to do your own art checks. And there's a handful of people in the community right now that are doing that, and it's awesome. It's fun to watch those, and so keep that up, and we'll see you guys in a few days.